In this activity, we're going to work with different types of volumes in our Windows Disk Manager. There's a lot of different reasons why we might want to have different volumes, and we're going to look at a couple of them in here. Here we are already logged into server SA1, and we see we already have an NTFS vol already configured. We could do this. We could do a lot of these activities through Server Manager. However, I'm going to right-click the Start menu, and I'm going to click Computer Management. I believe the instructions say to start Disk Management. However, if you start Computer Management, then that will open up Disk Management right there. We'll go ahead and say OK to that. And as we look through here, we will see that disk number 0 has 3 partitions already. There is a EFI system partition, the C drive, which is our boot partition, as well as a recovery partition in case something breaks. We want to make sure that we don't make any changes to disk 0. Here on disk 1 is our NTFS volume, and it is currently 10 gigabytes in size. We want to make this bigger. So I'm going to right click on NTFS vol and say extend. It brings up a nice little extend wizard, and what we want to do is only extend on disk 1, and we want to extend by about 5,000 megabits or 5 gigabits. Click next and finish, and we will see almost immediately it is now 14.8 gigabits in size. If I go back to File Manager and press F5, we now see 14.8 gigs free. Hooray! So we were able to expand the size of our drive. Well, as easy it was to expand the size of our drives, sometimes we need to shrink them. So if I go back to Computer Management, right-click NTFS vol and say Shrink Volume. Here I want the amount of space to shrink, and I will choose, again, 5,000. Gives me the total size after the fact. Select Shrink, and it shrinks my drive. As probably should be expected, you can't shrink more than the contents that you have on the drive. For the most part, when working in Windows, we are working with NTFS volumes. However, there are different types of volumes available to us. For instance, if I right-click to the right of the NTFS vol in this 9.98 gigs unallocated, I can right-click and say New Simple Volume. And in the wizard, go and choose the default size. iDrive. Next. And the file system, I want this to be ReFS instead of NTFS. I will call this ReFS vol, as well as perform a quick format, and then next, and finish. At this point, I now have an NTFS volume as well as a ReFS volume. If I go to my File Explorer, I will see both of the volumes right there. I can go ahead and right-click and Properties for each of these and then compare the properties that are available amongst them. We will notice almost immediately that there are more tabs available for NTFS than there are for ReFS. Additionally, just right here on the General tab, on the NTFS page, NTFS volume, I can actually click to compress to save disk space. However, for ReFS, that is not an option. Specific amongst the tabs that are missing, for NTFS, I have shadow copies. However, for ReFS, that is not in there. As well as with NTFS, I have the option to set quotas, file quotas for users in my organization, which is not available for ReFS. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel on both of these. One of the great options when working with Windows volumes is that we can start configuring RAID in our environments. What I want to do, currently I have a 10 gig volume right here, and I want to set this up as a mirror set so that if a single hard drive fails, a second copy will still be available to me. So I'm going to right click my NTFS vol and say add mirror. It says, great, here are the disks that are available for you to mirror it to. Because my NTFS vol is exactly 10 gigabits, which is just a little bit too big for disk number 3. It's going to give me disk 2 as my option, and then I will click add mirror. It asks me if I am sure I want to do this, and I say yes. And after a few moments, it will go into effect. There we are. They are red, and we can see down here it says red is a mirrored volume. It says that it is resyncing right now, so it is actually mirroring all of the content from disk 1 onto disk 2. From an end user standpoint, they will not notice any difference. The NTFS vol is still just 10 gigs and still continues to operate. However, from an administrative point of view, it might increase performance as well as increase resiliency of the disks altogether. So that was fairly simple to create a mirror set or a RAID 1. Next, we want to create a RAID 5. In order to do that, I will need all three, all disk 1, disk 2, and disk 3. So I need to delete the volumes I've already created. I'm going to go ahead and right click ReFS and just say delete volume, and yes. Same thing for NTFS, right click, delete volume, and yes. When that's finished, I'm going to go ahead and right click disk 1, and I will say new RAID 5 volume. And a wizard opens up and it asks me which disks I want to choose. I already have disk 1 selected, and then I will choose disk 2, add, and disk 3, add. You'll notice that the amount of disk available is not total what should be available, but instead is what is available commonly amongst all three drives. Choose next. Let's give this the H drive. Next, NTFS, we will call this RAID 5 vol. And I'm going to check the quick format option. Otherwise, it's going to take forever. Next, and finish. Yes. Took a second, and the volumes appeared, and now they are synchronizing. That took a minute or two for the synchronizing of all of the drives. I can now see I have H drive spread across 3 different disks, 10 gigs on disk 1, 10 gigs on disk 2, and then 10 gigs on disk 3. When I look at my RAID 5 volume, that gives me a total of 20 gigs, or the sum of 2 of the 3 drives together. Lastly, I want to get rid of this so that my disks will be available for me in other activities. So I'm going to right click my RAID 5 vol and just say delete volume. Am I sure this is going to remove all the data? Yes, I am sure. And then all 3 disks should go back to unallocated. And that is the end of this activity.